Hey everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Marketing Corner by Jen and Casper. I think we're kind of like on episode 3 here, Jen. We're sticking with Marketing Corner for a
I
while.
like Marketing Corner.
Yeah, it's getting more and more cliche and more stickiness. I love it.
You know we're gonna check and someone's gonna have used it already, but
Yeah. In our
anyway.
last episode, we talked about lead ads versus branding. So if you haven't listened to that one, please go check it out. It's really cool. And but one of the things that leads into is to definitely talk about attribution. So attribution modeling and attribution tools, and the big black Pandora's box, if you can call it that. So in a definition terms, what would you say attribution means to you, Jen?
To me, attribution kind of gives you a better overview of just how much influence different activities have had on a lead. So whether that's touch points, content, ads, it just gives you a better idea of the buyer journey and hopefully, ideally optimizing it.
Yeah, I would agree. Like it's the reason they call it the holy grail is that you want to know which one helped you bring in the value, right? Uh,
Exactly.
so if you like on a top level, what would you say is the goal? Like like why are we so interested in attribution these days? Everyone seems like I think attribution was the hot topic, but marketing buzzword for like 2019, 2020, and probably gonna be that for a
Mhm.
few.
I think it will be for a few years. I think it's because we are getting, maybe budgets are being cut. I don't know if it's
Mm,
the current crisis and everything else, but you want to spend your money on what's working.
yeah.
And the nature of marketing is sometimes it's really hard to see that
Mm,
because it's not just lead gen ads like we talked about yesterday. There's so many other activities that you do. And so for marketing, it's important that we justify everything we do
mm,
to get that budget, to get that spend. And also companies want more customers. So we need to figure out the best path and figure out what's working and double down on that and stop spending time and resources on things that aren't working.
yeah. Yeah, and exactly. And I think it's like also like part of the whole, let's call it a trend or like a wave of performance marketing, right? Like
Mhm.
everyone, like I personally, I'm very spearheading that part. And I think you are as well. It's like we
Mhm.
want to know where we're getting our value from. Like what, like I want to put my money where I get the most bang for my buck. And the closer we try to get to that, the more into attribution we move to. So, like, what are some of like what are some of the tools that you could use in if you talk attribution in general? Do you use any tools over at Dixa?
Yeah, we use a lot of tools actually, because we found that one tool doesn't do it all, which we'll talk
Mm,
about, I think. But we currently, unfortunately, so we currently use Clipfolio as a
mm,
dashboard to see where we are in terms of the targets and what we're aiming for, which is a very cool way of quickly looking. If it's red, work harder. If it's green, we're good.
mm. Yeah.
Oversimplifying it. And then we also use Dream Data,
Mm,
where we get a better overview of all the different multi-touch attribution. It's a multi-touch attribution tool that lets us see all the different touches, not just 100% allocation to first or last or W shape.
yeah, exactly. So I have to be honest that on this topic, like Templify, where I used to work, we never got to solving attribution completely. We just started when I left.
Well,
But
everyone, no one has.
exactly, which is
So don't feel bad.
whole other point. But
Yeah.
one of the things was also we look differently at Dream Data. I think Tableau is one of the big players in the field as well. But I think the question is always like all these tools like Dream Data, Tableau. So Dream Data and Tableau are, in my opinion, the ones that are like they're just attribution. That's what they do. Like they try to
Mhm.
solve this attribution thing. Whereas we talked a little bit before episode also about like lead forensics. You mentioned that one, and Funnel IO, which we use to Templify as well, and Mixpanel, and all these tools have a part of they're kind of solving a little bit of attribution, but not completely getting there. But my point with this is maybe saying maybe that's the point. Maybe you can never get there. Like
Yeah.
how when would you say you're satisfied? Like how far do we need to go? I know it's a hard question, but
It's a really hard question.
yeah.
I don't think we'll ever 100% get there. Ideally, what I would like with my data and my attribution is I would love to say this is the most effective path
Mm,
of a customer. So like we talked about in the previous episode where we
mm,
discussed, the different touch points. that people have? What are the touch points that are converting people, and what are the ones that are distracting people? So in an ideal world, I would love to say the average the fastest journey for the highest value customer has this and this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
Do that more. Do more content like that. Do more ads like that. Whatever that is, do more of that. Put it in this order, and you're going to get a lead machine that is just going to take off.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Does that exist? Not yet.
Not
in my
really,
opinion.
right?
Not really. Yeah.
That's a problem. I heard so I'm pretty good friends with actually Stefan, who runs the marketing over at Dream Data, and I also talk with some of the Danish marketing gurus in the space. I remember, I think it was Halfdan Team One from Obsidian Digital. He said at some point, he had a really good point where he was like, I think you need to look at it a little bit different. So normally when I look at something like a goal, I would say like, okay, how do I get from 50% to 100? It's not like that with attribution. It's more like, how do I get from having 15% of the overview to maybe having 25% of the overview? Like, because like the truth for me has been like, I can never get to 100. It does not exist. There's not going to be a tool that's going to be able to track if hey, look at something and then I go meet someone on the street that's my friend and I tell them, hey, you should check out this tool.
Yeah.
Like it's never gonna happen. Like that can't, like, I don't think that's ever gonna happen. So,
and even with my kind of, sorry to interrupt, but even with my dream scenario, everyone's different.
Yeah.
Every company's different, everything's different. So it's very hard to go replicate this and then you'll get more leads.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to accept like what is the degree of attribution we want to be at? Like how important is it for us to know our attribution levels? And that actually brings me to the next question is, when in your opinion should you start as a company to look at attribution? When does it become a thing? I have a very strong opinion on this, but I'll let you go first.
Well, I think obviously the larger you get, the more initiatives you have going, then of course you're going to need to keep track of everything you do. So I wouldn't say, a smaller organization or a small startup just starting out, like, don't necessarily invest in these tools just yet, because you can kind of look at stuff and go, this is what's working. It's kind of like with Dixa, when you're up and running and you have 5 different channels, then you need us. If you're just getting phone calls, then you don't need a platform. It's the same kind of idea. So I think, we are at, we have our B round funding. We have about 140 people in the company. Now we are looking at attribution because we have a lot of initiatives. But smaller companies maybe don't have that many things going on at the moment. So I wouldn't say it's a primary focus.
No, because and I think you're tapping exactly into what I want to say, so that's great. Because exactly, because I feel like some people, I've literally helped people where they were 30 people, 40 people maybe, and they would be like, so I want to know exactly where the value comes from. Yes, definitely, I want to know that too. But are you prepared to invest 10, 20, 30, $50,000 or whatever it costs per year? I think Tableau is super expensive, if I'm not mistaken. To know that knowledge, because I think that's something people sometimes forget, is that you have to that knowledge you get from having better attribution knowledge. You need to put that back into your marketing. Like you need to make sure that, okay, now we know that this content and this Google ad thing that's working better, that's driving in the most revenue. Cool, let's invest more in that. And that investment has to be put on top of the other investment, and then you still have to have a positive ROI of implementing an attribution tool. And for that reason, I don't think you should look at it if you're less than 50 people, just on a granular level. I don't think it's even remotely close. We're 14 people in compliance. I can tell you, I'm not even. It's crossed my mind, but it's not crossed my mind in a serious way.
Well, I think you also bring up a good point too, because when you're smaller, we talked a little bit about this. When you have a lot of data, you can get drunk on data, and you can just go into rabbit holes. And then what are you going to do with all this data? And that's the question smaller teams need to ask themselves. Cool. I know that most people come through this particular channel. Am I going to now take all my resources on this one channel? What do I do with that data once I have it? And I think when you're smaller, your hands are kind of tied. It's great to have an overview, but we actually have a lot of things we need to do. When you're a bit bigger, you have the kind of luxury of saying, now we know that this is working. Hey, lead gen team, look into that channel and optimize it. Hey, branding team, you look at this stuff, and you can kind of actually do stuff with that data.
Yeah, exactly. Like exactly. So I think you're looking at, but at the same time, I also thought like the other day when I was discussing it with a friend, and I was like, maybe when is there also a point in the other end? So now we talked about like how big you have to get, but is there also a point where you get too big where it doesn't matter? And here my point is not maybe B2B related, maybe more B2C. Let's take someone like Coca-Cola. Should they need to look at attribution? I think so. But like at some point, it also becomes like we're doing a TV ad, we're doing ads everywhere. Like, should we stop doing ads everywhere? Like, how is the attribution tool? I'm not an expert, so maybe I'm
But if you're
rolling into.
Coca-Cola, you have money to spend. So
Yeah, well, they probably have a tool anyways. That's my point. But my point is just like maybe you at some point you get so big that it doesn't really matter where like it comes from. You're just because you're always investing in everything. I know it sounds a little bit off-putting when I say it like this. I can hear that, but it's just a thought I had the other day. At least it was like maybe it also goes into other way. I think the sweet spot is definitely like Dixa Templify size of 150, 100, 200 people plus, and up to 1,000. 2,000 people. That's definitely where you see the most value, I think. Like that's
well,
where
you're using it to grow, right? You're using it to grow, and I think once you hit a certain growth, you're kind of like you're never gonna go, cool, we made it, we're done. Let's just all sit back. But you'll have other initiatives, or maybe each region will have its own tool. How can we improve this region? How can we, so, but yeah, I agree with you. I think, we use attribution to grow, to make sure we spend our money in the right place where we're getting return on it. And there will come a time where we're like, cool, we're huge. Maybe now we need to look at that regionally, and we set up every region as its own little mini startup. And then that, what a nice problem to have.
Luxury problems.
A luxury problem, yeah.
I think, and I think speaking of like setting up different departments and stuff, I think one of the risks that we also talked about before the episode is a little bit like this, like wrong data, wrong decisions kind of thing. I know you had a really good point about that, Jen. Like, so like, is that something you've seen before, or like, what do you think about it?
Well, I think that having data obviously is very important, but you lack nuance. And so we talked a little bit in a previous episode about branding versus lead gen. And I talked about the example of, if I point to my best performing channel, Google Ads. And so if you use attribution, my attribution will say Google Ads is your best channel. But what it misses is that the best keyword is Dixa. And that you don't see, and that's branding. So if you just take a black and white approach and you go, okay, stop the branding, because attribution says that this is our best channel. Well, actually, you're turning off the thing that is driving the most traffic through that channel. And so I think attribution, we talked about, like using AI and chatbots as opposed to a human being for customer support. Like, yeah, AI is going to help you with a lot of those easy questions, but you're missing that nuance. And you're going to make a decision. Maybe you could, like we haven't done this in Dixa, but you could make a decision that's like, oh, cool, well, then we'll just turn off all this other stuff and just focus on this, because that's what the attribution is saying. But you don't go that next level where you're like, hang on, there's more at play here.
And I have a perfect case from Templify that where we actually did that too, where we cut off. We ended up like we developed a lot together with Glenn, who's the head of marketing there. Him and I, we kind of developed this like he spearheaded it, but metrics for like saying, okay, so when can we measure MRR per channel per different activities we're doing? It's very efficient and took us very far, and I'm positive it was what made us grow so rapidly in marketing specifically. But one of the things it definitely lacked was sometimes it didn't show what contributed to MR the most from different channels. And I remember at some point we were like, the data was telling us LinkedIn was not performing for over a certain amount of time. And I was like, okay, cool. If we're trust our data, we should be shutting off LinkedIn right now. We should be. So we tried it, but we were both a little bit skeptical. We were both a little bit. Said, now we're gonna do it, and we immediately, like 3 months later, like we only lasted 2 months because we saw a huge drop already, and it was a drop where we couldn't. The only like reason was we cut off this LinkedIn spend. So there was like a clear correlation. It was so evident that this was what was happening, but we had no real data except for increase in branded searches, traffic, direct traffic, all these things. That was the only evidence we had, essentially. and that's where I realized that data can sometimes make you do wrong decisions. Like where here, if we had like just been hardcore and somebody from the top had looked at our sheets at that point of time to say like cut off LinkedIn for the rest of the year, and they'll be like, okay, but so here you have to like gotta make sure that you also have this. I always advocate for like your gut feeling. It's like you gotta have gut feeling sometimes. Like you gotta know like, okay, maybe it's doing something we just can't measure yet.
Have you do you watch The Office?
Yes.
Okay, this reminds me of the don't say not a lot, because then we'll have to end this podcast because it's the best show ever. But okay, we're gonna stop it there. You watch Office. No, there's this really great episode where Michael and Dwight are going around to give gift baskets to people, right? They're trying to win customers, and they're relying on their GPS. And the GPS gets them so far, but then the GPS tells them make a right, and Dwight's going, "There's a lake. Don't make a right. There's a lake." No, GPS says make a right. And they drive into a lake. And it's kind of like that with attribution, right? It's like it gets you to a certain point, but you have to turn on your, look and remember that nuance, and remember that, well, there's a lake there, so maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe it means go around, like it's kind of a metaphor for, I think, how attribution is. I think it's really important. It gives you direction, but it is not the Holy Bible. It is not this is what you do. This is not the silver bullet. So it's important to see where your ad spend is getting the best return, of course, but it is not something to be followed blindly.
No, it's not. And I think what we did here at Templify was a really good case of saying we actually knew this was not going to be the right decision, but we needed to know if it was like, we needed to know for certainty that we were not doing something wrong the rest of the 10 months, if that makes sense, right? Like we needed to know for certainty, and we kind of like already like 2 weeks in, I was like, I'm not sure about this at all. Like, and then we turned it back up after a while, after 2 months, I think. So I think we covered most of the stuff we wanted to talk about here. Is there anything that you want to bring up? We haven't talked about attribution models. Is that something you use at Dixa?
We actually use lead scoring at the moment, which I think is a little bit more reliable. So we're trying to figure out when a lead is warm. Using Dream Data, we can see the path of individual customers, but they still rely very heavily on traditional attribution modeling. So we can choose, I want to look at first touch, last touch, or W shape. But I can click into individual account and I can see everything they touched. So what I would like to get to someday is this customer that generated $1,000. 80% of that was through marketing touch points. I'd love to get to a point like that someday. I can see it individually, but I don't have an aggregated view of like, here's all the money generated overall, here's how much marketing had an influence over. So that's what I'd like to get to, and we're working with Dream Data to get to that. And that's, I think that would be a lot more powerful to help show marketing initiatives and how they're impacting the business a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. I think the typical attribution models, when especially coming from a bit of a Google Ads background here, is like we always talk about like last click versus position based versus data driven. Like I don't think we ever had enough data in Templify to actually get to data driven, which requires a significant amount of data, which is a lot easier in B2C. Like B2C, it can happen all the time, but B2B, it's actually quite hard to get to that point. So we use position based, and there was definitely some you can definitely see some differences in where Google in general would attribute value. So we used that one, but for a lot of it was also last click. Like it was just like that's because that was the best we had. So
see, we always use first click, which is interesting. We use first click to see what gets them through the door.
Okay, yeah.
Because last click for us would be a marketing it would be a sales call or sales email. It would always be last click.
Yeah, I actually think that's also what we use. I'm sorry, it's not last click.
That's okay.
First touch.
No worries. I would just be like, oh my God, someone who uses last click, tell me more.
No, it's first
what
touch.
are you, this strange new creature?
I think we used first touch for demo sign up. So as long as it was a demo sign up, then it was first touch.
Right, and then you look at last click to get them to the demo.
Yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
But on that note, I think attribution is a topic. I feel like we can talk. We're probably going to have an episode like in 3 to 6 months, and then say, "Hey, I've solved it." Or
I don't know if we ever will, but
but
I think unfortunately, I'd love to solve it, but
I don't think we'll ever get there. Yeah. But on that note, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we have another episode next week, and I think this time we're talking about a little bit about Corona.
Yeah, like everyone else.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
but
sorry, but I feel like this is important because that there's some new lockdown happening a lot of places, and like let's talk a little bit about initiatives and everything we can. How do you get past this second
yeah,
wave? We call it that.
especially in businesses where sometimes they see marketing as an expense and one that can be removed in some
Not like the
cases.
revenue machine we think it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
thanks for
Well,
tuning in and take care,
thank
guys.
you so much. Bye bye.